I feel like a crucial part of my development was watching Boondocks as a small child. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, hi, my name is Zhariya Smith, and I typically make commentary videos just like this one. So if you guys happen to like that, or you happen to dislike my gorgeous face, make sure to subscribe down below and hit the notification bell to get notified every single time I post, which happens to be on Mondays and on Fridays. Hi. How are we doing? I have a different candle for the day. I promise. I have like 2 more. Maybe 1 more left, and then I'll stop lighting candles in the beginning of my videos, but this one is dragon fruit kiwi. Mostly it's because it matches my little hoodie situation that I got on, or sweatshirt situation I got going on. Either way, she is now lit, and I'm gonna put it up here. And let's get started. Okay, so I think if you follow me on Twitter, you may have seen this, but recently I decided to rewatch all of Boondocks. And you might be wondering, Zhariya, why would you do that? And honestly, it's because I saw that it was on Hulu or HBO Max, whichever one I watched it on. And I remember genuinely loving this show. And I remember specifically in my video where I talked about reboots, I had seen that Sony said that they were going to be making a Boondocks remake that was going to be made in 2022. And I was like, you know what? I used to love Boondocks when I was little. Let me go and rewatch that show to see if it aged well. And I would say that it aged okay. It definitely didn't age like milk, but I'd say it aged like non-perishable foods, like the canned ones. Like it's good, but like still it's a little iffy, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Now we're here and I watched all Boondocks, and I'm gonna talk about it to show that I didn't waste my time watching this show again. But yeah, so if you are, I don't know, not a connoisseur of adult cartoons, I might be asking me, what is the Boondocks? It's called the Boondocks, not just Boondocks, but I'll be referring to it as Boondocks because I'm not gonna say the every single time I talk about it. But Boondocks is an adult American animated comedy sitcom created by Aaron McGruder for Cartoon Network's late-time programming block that is notoriously owned, or block is covered, by Adult Swim. I love me some Adult Swim. Always have, always will. It's always going to be a vibe for me. Basically, it's based upon a comic strip that was of the same name, and the series premiered on November 6th of 2005. And the show centers around a black family called the Freemans as they live in a white suburban area named Woodcrest, which some say is like modeled after the Chicago suburb Crestwood. Basically, the show details, racial stereotypes, classism, viewpoints, radicalized ideologies, and it's very much covered in satire. Like, this show is not supposed to be taken seriously. If you take the show seriously, you're gonna get a lot more offended if you take it seriously. It's not in the same essence of like South Park, but it's definitely in that same alley. And the series ended on June 23rd of 2014, so I guess still relatively recently. Like in 2014 I was in like middle school, I think. I guess it is kind of long ago. Regardless, that is the Boondocks, and I personally loved this show growing up. I thought it was so funny, and granted, I didn't watch it chronologically. I just watched it whenever I happened to be awake at like 11 o'clock at night. But to me, the Boondocks was such an important show, and I loved watching it, and like rewatching it and realizing the themes and things that were said. It's honestly like, I'm like not shocked I ended up the way that I did after watching that show. And I'll get into that. My favorite character, well, second favorite character, Huey Freeman, who I believe is the main character of the show. Like, you know how typically in shows you can tell who the protagonist is very easily? I would assume the protagonist is Huey because he's always very, knowledgeable of everything, but Huey is 10 years old. He is a quote-unquote domestic terrorist, known for his very radical ideas, and it's just a great main character. You can't really complain about him. His younger brother Riley, however, is 8, and he is pretty much the opposite of Huey. He is very much more of a stereotypical black youth. In the show, they call him hip and urban. He's known for loving rap, he's also obsessed with, saying things are gay or not, which we'll get into later. But Riley generally is just known as the very ignorant Freeman brother. He doesn't really know much, and he's always getting into foolishness. Next, we have their caretaker, who is Granddad, aka Robert Jebediah Freeman. Robert is a very interesting character, and I actually enjoy him a lot. It's just very nostalgic of having like black parents and black grandparents. It's like a specific experience. I really don't know how to explain it, but this show does that very well, and I love him. He's like a civil rights person, but not because he followed the civil rights movement. It's because he was like adjacent to like Rosa Parks, the freedom riders. He was just always there, so he's a civil rights legend apparently in the show, which I think is kind of interesting because you see how he is now in the show. And he's voiced by John Witherspoon, and then Riley and Huey are voiced by Regina King, who is an icon. We love Regina King on this channel. Next, some other main character, well, I guess like side characters, but not like side characters. My favorite character, I love this man. Like, oh my gosh, I love him so much, and that is Tom Dubois. Tom is an attorney lawyer. He is just great. Or not he's an attorney. He was a prosecutor and then became the other thing, which is like defendant. I don't know. Editing me will clarify.
Or the hanging LED light. But Tom was a prosecutor, but then became a defense attorney after a specific episode where he went to jail with the kids for a field trip. Long story.
Tom to me is just like me. If I were like, I feel like me and Tom are on the same wavelength. Love him. His wife Sarah is very interesting. She's very much, I think, supposed to be a stereotype of like white women wanting to be with black men, but like I think it's like more than that. Sarah's a really good character. She's more so just like a key point in Tom's insecurity about his wife leaving him for miscellaneous rappers and politicians and literally any man of color that walks in her direction, which, is very interesting. And then they also have a daughter named Jasmine Dubois, who is their daughter. She's Huey's best friend, apparently, in the show. Jasmine's pretty interesting, too, but there's not much to talk about her, really. Next, we have, I would say if a show had an antagonist and the antagonist wasn't like the system or society, it would be Uncle Ruckus. Uncle Ruckus, I believe, is a play on the slur Uncle Tom. Uncle Ruckus is a black man who hates other black men, and he claims he has reverse vitiligo, and he says specifically like the opposite of what Michael Jackson had. Who very much is having a struggle with his race throughout the entire show and cannot accept the fact that he is a black man and thinks that white men are superior, and very much my YouTube comment section. Doesn't believe in equality, thinks slavery was the best thing to ever happen. Literally, if the show had an antagonist, it would be Uncle Ruckus. And I know this man is satire, I know that he's supposed to be a joke, but like I feel like the points of the show that would be perceived as offensive today is his character, which his character is a joke. So like it's like, what are you gonna do type situation. Some honorable mention characters are Ed Wensler Sr., who is the owner of Woodcrest. We have Ed Wensler Jr., who is his son, who is a slime ball and signed basically legal slavery. That was an episode that happened, or multiple episodes. And then we have Ed Wensler III, who I love him. He's always trying to rob people. He's always just trying to find ways. And because he's so rich and his family owns everything, he obviously never gets in trouble. And it gets to the point to where like they try to bomb a building like on some, 9/11 type stuff. And it gets called off and the literal bomb squad gets called the FBI are like investigating him, and he gets no repercussions for that, which I guess, you know, is probably a commentary on something, but, you know, who knows. He's just a very funny character. His best friend is Jin Rummy, who I also find very hilarious. Their dynamic is very, very hilarious. Specifically in the episode where they were robbing a bunch of people's in the Woodcrest's houses. Their dialogue, very funny, very much love that for them. And then we also have Thugnificent, who is their across the street neighbor, Gangstalicious, who made Riley think that he was gay. That's another episode, another thing. And then we have Leonard, who is Gangstalicious's friend, or maybe he's Thugnificent's friend. I saw in the fried chicken food episode, he was the one who gave Tom fried chicken, and then, you know, he got, they had a pandemic episode, which is a thing, but either way, yeah, those are the characters. Now, I'm going to briefly talk about Boondocks and the controversy that comes with it, because I feel like that's, you know, what the girlies want to talk about, you know, about Boondocks, and why people are like, oh, this show wouldn't age well, and today's kids are too sensitive to watch it, when it's literally an adult TV show. So like, what kids are supposed to be watching, and I'm saying I watched it as a kid, like, that's me, that's on me, like, I was the one who stayed up and watched it, you know, like, it wasn't on Nickelodeon at 9 a.m. type stuff, you know. But Boondocks is known for their political criticism on what's happening in the U.S. Specifically, they talk about 9/11. They talk about how the government mistreated Hurricane Katrina survivors with like the FEMA checks and all that stuff. They talk about specifically Huey saying that Ronald Reagan is the devil. I'm not gonna further elaborate on that. I feel like if you know, you know. Specifically, there's an episode, The Garden Party, which was the first episode, where Huey talks about how Jesus was actually black and he wasn't white, and people got very upset about that. And then we also have them talking about the Iraq War. Very controversial topics, but it's also an adult cartoon, so it's like, who's to say what's right and what's wrong? Next, they also make commentary on black culture in general. Well, it was a black TV show, so obviously they're going to have black things in it. But specifically, what I found very interesting was that there was an episode where Huey wanted to talk about how corrupt BET is, and decided to watch only BET to prove that like it was really toxic to black youth. Then there was a whole other side plot where the owner of BET, like, she's like, it's not like the Black Entertainment Channel, it's the Black evil television, you know. They also critique R. Kelly and how R. Kelly is treated in the black community, which I actually agree with that criticism, that the black community raises up R. Kelly, who literally is a criminal, should be a registered sex offender, but like, you know, who's to say, you know. They also talk about people, important black figures like Maya Angelou, Oprah Winfrey, Bill Cosby, but before the Bill Cosby situation. And then they also talk about Barack Obama, and specifically how Barack Obama failed black people when he was a president, and wasn't really for the people from their critiques. And then also specifically Boondocks was getting like a lot of, you know, not hate, but like a lot of criticism because they use the N-word a lot. And in fact, the N-word is a topic of one of my favorite episodes, which I absolutely love. But it's very interesting because people would say like, oh, they can't say the N-word on television because, you know, whatever. But I believe that the creator said that he used the N-word because that's how he talks, you know. This is going to be the next section of the video. I'm not going to talk about every single specific episode. I'm going to talk about my favorite ones and the ones that I happen to enjoy for whatever reason that is. My favorite episode is definitely the S word, which is basically an episode where Riley gets called the N-word by one of his teachers, and it becomes a whole national news story. And in the end, they don't end up getting any prize money. They just end up getting nothing, and Riley was just called the N-word by his teacher, and then we move on. But I think it's very interesting. That episode has some very great quotes. Well, not great quotes, but like memeable quotes that I enjoy a lot. And I think it's very interesting. So that's the S word. Love that episode. So funny, so entertaining. It's probably not a 10 out of 10 episode, but it's my favorite one of the series, which says a lot, I guess, about me as a person. Next, we have Guess Hoes Coming for Dinner, which is one of the first episodes of the show. I think it's episode 3, and it's basically where Robert starts dating a prostitute and doesn't realize she's a prostitute and refuses to acknowledge that she's a prostitute until she gives up her suburban life to be a prostitute once again. Also, very funny episode, very funny quotes, to say the least. Next we have the itis, which is where Robert opens a restaurant and it makes people so sick they fall asleep. Because you know how they say, like, whenever you have like a good meal, you fall asleep. Well, this is taken to the extreme, and he has a restaurant and people are ended up getting heart disease and all these issues. And he gets sued, and then it ends up being that the owner, Ed Wensler Sr., he gave Robert that restaurant so that it would bring down property values and he could purchase the park that was across the street, you know, typical capitalistic nature. And next we have the fundraiser, which is, if my favorite episode isn't the S word, it is the fundraiser. It's basically like a parody on, like, I guess like The Godfather, essentially. It's like, basically it's over like chocolate, because Riley wants to like make money and he talks about how school fundraisers are like scamming you, so he wants to make the money himself. And it's a very funny episode. I love it literally so much, and pretty much any episode in season 4, which sucks because the person who made the show wasn't actually a part of the last season, but that season is so funny. It ends on the episode where it's like Riley getting, not canceled, that's not the word to use, but it's like Riley talking about like how he called a kid gay and then ends up getting on national news for like hate speech. This is 2014, so this is like around when, you know, gay marriage is being legalized. People are, you know, very much more into not saying like rude things to gay people. It's a very interesting episode, and I think it says a lot about what society is. But yeah, that's the Boondocks, and I watched the entire show front to back. Well, that's like a book. But yeah, overall I like the show. I think there are some issues and with the show about, like, you know, things that are being said, things that can be misconstrued, but like I can appreciate shows for what they were in the time that they were, you know. And I don't think that show was like racist, you know. I just think that it's just how people talk. And when you remove the character of Uncle Ruckus, the show actually isn't like as bad as you might think it is. But yeah, that is my video. That is my talking about the Boondocks. If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up because it really helps my channels like mine. Make sure to also subscribe down below because I want to get to 3,000 by the end of May. I'm hopeful that it'll happen. And yeah, so make sure to stay happy and stay healthy, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye guys.